So, let me turn the music off, and we'll start with John Doyle. Let's start with the anti-gay guy. Nah, I want to start with John Doyle. Because this video's half an hour. I don't know if we're going to get through the whole thing, just because it's really long, and I don't know if I can deal with that much Doyle. There's only so much red hat twink action I can handle. Yeah, we'll see. John Doyle, in his parents' house, wearing a Trump hat, worrying about if Trump might lose, what he's gonna do. So let's find out.
We are less than 3 weeks away from...
Oh, the Animal Crossing thing? Yeah. This gives me strong Pokemon Go to the vibes. Or Pokemon Go to the polls vibes. Joe Biden sets up his own Animal Crossing island for presidential campaign. Feels very much, hey kids, Pokemon Go to the polls. Ugh.
From what is quite literally the most important and consequential election in the history of our country. And I know that they say that every 4 years, but we'll go over why this time it's actually different. But what we're not going to do is...
I weirdly agree with John on that. I think this is one of the most important elections we've had in decades. Although I think so for different reasons than him.
Right, capitalistic propaganda.
Hollaback Young, thank you for following.
Is focused on the specific, oh, well, this gun law is going to pass, or they're going to try to change this congressional procedure, because what's more important than that is actually analyzing the trends that, if allowed to continue and propagate, will result in all of those things eventually. Predicting exactly what's going to happen with regards to policy right away, it's not really important right now, because in a long enough timeline, it's all going to happen. So what's important right now is discussing things on a macro scale. Understanding why Trump was elected, why they want him gone, and more broadly, like what he represents. And it's really important that we do understand these things, because 98% of what you've been hearing and what you will hear until November 3rd is, if we don't vote Trump, we're going to get socialism. Trump won because America will never be a socialist country. And it's like, man, it is so much bigger than that. Please come join us in 2020. The Cold War is over, so we'll...
Your show's called Heck Off, Commie! And you rally against, like, Marxists and people on the left being communists regularly. What are you talking about, John?
Go over all of that, but I have to warn you, this is going to be very sobering. It's not going to be easy to hear, but I would advise you to not let it depress you. Don't let it make you disillusioned, but instead, let it make you enlivened. Let it make you righteously indignant, because without your effort, it's basically raps. So do stay tuned.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Dude spanking dudes with 10 bits. If John grew out his hair and took his glasses off, he could make a good femboy. I see John Doyle as more like a cat boy. Like, take that fedora off and he's got a little pair of cat ears. That's John Doyle's future, I think.
John Doyle in.
I don't think John falls for the QAnon stuff. At least not yet.
Heck off, commie.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Heck Off Commie. We're going to jump around a bit, but it's all relevant and important to what we're talking about. So bear with me, because to understand where we're at now, we actually have to get back to World War II. We have to get back to what America and the West wanted after World War II, more specifically, the direction of American conservatism after World War II, because believe it or not, the end of World War II, which we're always led to believe was this great time in American history, everyone was buying homes.
John Doyle, what a goober. Yeah.
We had the baby boomers. That's all true, but unfortunately, the post-war trends that were established have led us very logically and predictably to where we are now. And that's why...
John, in the post-World War II era, America had some of the strongest union and labor movements it's ever had. People had jobs that were backed up by their unions. We had incredibly high tax rates on the highest tax brackets. What are you talking about? Those aren't conservative values. Oh goody, walked in on Hannah and John Doyle. Yeah.
Funny about the tools
Daddy Sume, hey Hannah, I have arrived. Welcome. 1 second. I got a text message. Anyway. What I was saying, yeah, we're like right post-New Deal. America is flourishing due to a myriad of reasons. First of all, Europe has been decimated by World War II. America, well involved in the last little bit of World War II, was mostly untouched, at least in terms of, like, our own land, right? I mean, Pearl Harbor happened, but other than that, there weren't any ground invasions of anywhere in the United States. Our infrastructure wasn't destroyed like a lot of Europe was. So we were in a strong position to become the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. On top of that, we were coming off of, again, New Deal policies that ensured security for the old and all that stuff. We had strong unions, we had high tax rates for the wealthy. America was not, like, socially, was it conservative in the 50s? Yes. But economically, not really. America's, like, hard turn right into, like, laissez-faire capitalism that has absolutely no brakes on it, and F unions and F labor and all that stuff. That didn't happen until later, and that's when stuff starts really getting off the rails. Ugh. Tucker White 94, as much as I despise Joe Biden and the corporatist douchebags he represents, I'm hoping he wins just so I get to see all the right-wing chuds who view Donald Trump as God have the biggest, saltiest meltdown of all time. That'll be a good chud watch. The whatever, however long after, I think the following Friday, because we won't cover it, you know. I'm sure Tuesday, that is, you know, election day, we'll do a chud watch that'll be interesting, but then the following, if Biden wins, it'll be interesting, and even if Trump wins, it'll be a very interesting chud watch to see everyone's reactions, but...
I laugh whenever some fat communist is like, look at all that World War II stuff on his set. John Doyle's a boomer LARPer. Yeah, or maybe I strategically cast a wide net by creating a patriotic set emblematic of a time in American history that conservative types such as myself tend to love, and then people want to watch and listen when I talk about something less commonly discussed, which is where we went wrong during that time period. Trust my process, please.
Nah.
Every decision, a chess move. Everything here gets back to World War II. And what I mean by that is we can actually trace the things that we're dealing with now, the things that we think are absurd. We can trace them back to the strains of intellectualism that were embraced after World War II and promoted after World War II. And I'm not going to call everybody out specifically because I don't think that we need to be infighting right now. I don't think that we should be gatekeeping conservatism right now. After the election, we can focus on that. Once we put up some points on the board, once I'm a little bit bigger, then we can completely just exile these people from the mainstream volume of conservative discussion. But my point...
And this is the thing with conservatives. This is something conservatives do much better than people on the left. The left is so busy gatekeeping and purity testing other people on the left that we don't have the unity to get together and consistently push for policies that we all agree on. We're so focused on the things we disagree on. Like, I'm a leftist, okay? I'm not a big fan of liberals, but at the end of the day, they're closer to me than people like John Doyle, who is far right. So if we want to do things that are successful, we need to work together on the things we agree with, and then once we get into a position where we are winning, then you can actually sort of deal with the stuff we disagree with. This is why I'm talking to people, and people are like, oh, I'm not going to vote for Biden, I'm going to vote for a third party. Waste of your time. What a waste of your time. Way to abdicate responsibility for actually making a choice that matters. Like, I get it. I understand. Joe Biden wasn't my first choice. But at the end of the day, he's closer to my position than Trump is. And it's easier to get to my position from Biden than it is from Trump. Okay? Tiger White 94, I'm waiting for the chuds like John Doyle to slip up and say the quiet part out loud, i.e. the 1950s version they want is the one without coloreds in the same room. Yeah. That seems like, that's gotta be what they mean, because in the 1950s, things were very, very left-wing compared to today in terms of economic policy. So I don't understand what they think the 50s were outside of, you know, whites only being on the water fountain.
Point is right now that you can watch certain conservative figures give speeches about how, well, the idea that there's my truth instead of the truth is just completely absurd. And then you look at the conservative figures of days past who they're promoting, and it's people like Karl Popper, Hayek, John Stuart Mill, etc. These are people who literally laid the foundations that allowed for the ideas like that to spawn. And I know some of you have got red flags going up like, wait, but Hayek was against socialism. Isn't he one of us? Is the heck off commie guy against one of the men who led the intellectual charge against socialism? No. Trust my process. What I'm saying is that it's more nuanced than that. People like Popper and Hayek lived through both World War I and World War II. They saw death and destruction on an incomprehensible scale, a scale of which you and I know nothing. And the thought after the war, understandably, was like, okay, how do I make sure that some...
Daddy Sume with a link, Hayek? And then it's a link to Selma Hayek's Wikipedia page. Yes, they do have the same last name. Good observation.
something like this never happens again. And basically what was decided and promoted by people like Karl Popper, who wrote a book titled The Open Society and Its Enemies, which inspired the Open Society Foundation, which belongs to George Soros, just in case you still think these ideas are on our side. But the idea was basically that in order to avoid authoritarianism and in order to avoid great conflict, society must be anti-metaphysical. And metaphysics is just a fancy word for how we know things, basically. And so to be anti-metaphysical means that it's not only that you don't know things, but that you can't know things. The only things that you can know are things that you can prove empirically and that you can potentially disprove empirically as well. This was called falsification.
Right, and that's not bad, John. The idea that the only things you can know for 100% certain are the things that are testable and falsifiable is a reasonable place to be at. Like, when I don't understand how you could think that's a bad thing. Are you saying you want to make absolute statements on things that aren't testable and falsifiable? Because that's stupid, and that's how you get to really, really wrong conclusions.
And so with regards to the scientific method, that's cool. But when you get into what this means for society, it's pretty not cool, because it means that the idea of the nation, the idea of culture, of morality, of religion, all of that exists to restrict the progress of the open society. Because
oh no, people say evidence doesn't exist for the things I believe in. I better dismantle the idea that evidence is good then. John, if you want to be a nationalist, I disagree with you, but you have the right to do so. But you don't get to say, objectively, nationalism is a good thing. If you have evidence that you can, like, falsify, once again, falsifiability is important because it makes sure that the things that we're believing aren't biased in nature. It makes sure that we're not believing a thing and contorting our beliefs to our emotions as opposed to basing them on objective reality, at least as much as possible, right? So saying like, evidence doesn't necessarily say nationalism is the best way to go about things, or evidence doesn't necessarily say that my specific religion is true. It doesn't mean you get to say, therefore evidence is bad. What you should be saying is, oh, do I need to question my beliefs, or do I need to accept that there are some things in life that there aren't objective answers to, and I need to just sort of, like, make my best assumptions based on what I do have available to me in terms of information? Like, that's fine. That's life. That's not some, like, communist plot. That's the world in which we live. There are tons of things, philosophically speaking, that we just don't have objective answers to. Like, we just don't. And pretending that you do in order to try and validate your opinions tells me that you recognize the weakness of those opinions. Because the only way that you think you can win people over with them is to define them by default as objectively true, instead of actually convincing them that they are the proper way to view the world. And that is ridiculous. MMO addicted. Also, the whole Democrats don't care about young voters because they don't vote because Democrats don't care about young voters vicious cycle needs to be broken and should be broken by those who actually care about it, young folk. Yeah, I agree. And the Daddy Sume with some sort of link that someone says is not a Rickroll, so that's good. Spat out my incel, XL, incorrectly assuming something is a date. I think you've shown me this before on stream. I'm like 90% sure.
The good or utility of these things cannot necessarily be proven empirically, and even if it could, whether the metric is positive or negative is still subjective, and this is why he spent a lot of time.
Right. So if it is subjective, then you can't call what you are doing an objective good. That's the problem, John. Like, I understand that you genuinely believe that your, like, hyper right-wing BS is good, and you think it's good for the country, but you believe these things are good for weird esoteric reasons, like, oh, I think not, like, you're really anti looking at porn, for instance. You think porn is bad, and it's like a destructive force, and it can be for someone who has, like, addiction issues, but, like, for your average person who every once in a while, you know, opens up Pornhub or something and cranks one out, it's fine. You think that that's bad because it's some sort of moral slight, and not because it's actually, like, evil or that it harms anyone, but because you think there's some, like, out there esoteric idea of sin, and something is a sin because it is said to be a sin, and therefore, by definition, it is bad, even if the consequences of said action are not necessarily negative for anyone involved. And that's ridiculous, and you're allowed to believe that. You're allowed to believe ridiculous things. We live in America. You have the right to do that. Flat earthers exist too, and they're allowed to believe what they want to believe. But at the end of the day, you don't get to say, like, evidence be damned, my belief is objectively true even if there isn't evidence for it. That's what, like, fascists do, John. Literally. You missed the bits before mine and Towing 24s. Hold on, let me open the thing so I can read them all. Towing 24 just got here on a scale of 1 to Jeremy's basement pee. How cringe has Doyle been? So far, 4, which is about average, so we'll see. What else did I miss? Oh, MMO addicted with 10 bits. Oh god, I hate those armchair revolutionists. Voting will do nothing. We need to rise up. As much as a lefty I am, I'll never be on board with armed revolution, simply because all revolutions and armed uprisings create hierarchies and power structures which tempt the leadership to use them, and sooner or later will devolve into a dictatorship. Not to mention it'll take hectoliters of blood. Education and progress and steps. Biden over Trump, Bernie over Biden. Yeah, I agree. Anyone who's like an accelerationist or someone who believes like, oh, we just need to let the system crumble apart, or we need to tear it to the ground and build it from the bottom up, I submit for your approval the Reign of Terror. No one wants to be Robespierre. Don't be Robespierre.
We've all heard the expression, clothes make the man. But is it really true?
Did you have a favorite book as a child?
Do you have a favorite method of falling asleep?
Is there anything more precious than the gift of sight? Who can explain the mystery of music? Do we make our own luck?
Can a home ever be truly safe?
Have you checked the back sections of newspapers and magazines lately?
What is the secret of the green thumb? What mysteries lie within the frame of a portrait?
How many dramas have taken place in these tight little boxes?
How do you describe terror? Have you ever noticed the curious things one sees discarded by the roadside?
Who knows why certain people save certain things?
Have you ever experienced a sleepwalking episode? Is there a more important job than that of a teacher? Is there a more annoying sound than the screech of chalk against chalkboard?
I hate that noise. I hate the noise so much.
I'm critiquing the founding thinkers of Western thought, namely Plato and Aristotle, because he thought that if we can know the truth, then the truth is to be obeyed, which can potentially lead to
Winds Chanter with 10 bits. Did he just how much drama can take place in an American TARDIS? I think he's saying, like, how many people have had really dramatic phone calls in these things. Yeah. MMO addicted with 10 bits, bit of a cleanse. A 1952 mental health PSA, which I expect to be very yikes, turned out to be decent, or you can add it to the next public domania folder. If anyone wants to report this tweet from Lord of Patriarchy, let me take a look. Oh, I already reported. This is the tweet I reported. Gotcha. Yeah, report that tweet, folks, if you find it to be in violation of Twitter's terms of service, of course. Oops.
to authoritarianism and conflict. And so to achieve social progress, we have to restrict claims of truth to those which are falsifiable and practice modesty with all other beliefs that don't exist under that umbrella. Those would simply be my truth instead of the truth, because if we can eliminate the things that men care about the most, their nation, their God, their culture, etc., then maybe we can avoid mass conflict and authoritarianism.
No, John, it's about the reality that, like, your political beliefs can be really well-founded, and there's entire, like, branches of philosophy to talk about morality and power structures, and those things are worth, like, having conjecture about. But if you ever have a philosopher who comes to you and is like, I know the objective moral truth, here it is, I wrote it down, this is the truth, that person is an idiot. No one on the planet can prove objectively that certain, like, codes of morals or ethics are objectively true. Now, that doesn't mean that as a society and as different cultures, we don't come together in our groups and make determinations like basically everyone on the planet agrees murder is wrong, right? And then John Doyle's going to come and be like, well, what about abortion? Well, As a society, most people have come together and
There's nothing
said
funny about the
abortion
tools
doesn't
of
count as
capitalism.
murder because they're not necessarily a human being, or at the very least not a developed human being, right? So, like, societies come together and make these complex calls on morality, and then they often enshrine those opinions on morality into the law. These things are imperfect, which is why the legal system and our morality as a culture is ever changing, because people aren't static, and the things that are true 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago in regard to morality are not necessarily true today. Go back 300 years in America, and almost everyone's going to agree that because of someone's skin color, they wouldn't even be considered a equal person to you or I, right? That doesn't make what they believed, just because a lot of people believed it, it doesn't make it objectively true. Over time, hopefully, our goal as a society is to expand our empathy and understand other people around us and take into consideration the views of other people when we're making our determinations on what should or should not be illegal. Because in a lot of ways, the laws are supposed to be extensions of our moral beliefs as a culture, right? There is no such thing as objective morality, John. And I know that sucks. I get it. That sucks. It would be wonderful if there were a little book that you could just read and go, wow, those are the rules. And that's simple for people. I think that's why a lot of people follow certain religions, because it gives them an answer that says, like, here are the things that are definitely true, and we know they're true, and you just need to follow them. But that's an easy way out, because that's not really reality. And you're perfectly fine to have your beliefs, and that's fine. You can do whatever you want. But what I am saying is that in America, you do not get to impose those beliefs on other people. As a society, we have a secular legal system that determines laws based upon what we all decide in our representative democracy. We have views that are often parroted in the parties that we elect to office. They then legislate based upon the moral truisms that are espoused by the population, and then those legal truisms that become laws then get ruled on by the judiciary, right? Like, I understand that it's complicated, but that doesn't make it bad. Just saying because you don't like how complicated the world is, and the fact that a lot of things are just up to, like, how we feel as human beings, and those feelings can be
There's
valid.
nothing funny about
Those
the tools
feelings
of
can be
capitalism.
entirely based on objective reality and the things we see around us. But nonetheless, a lot of the times they're feelings. We're not doing science experiments every day about the things that we believe in terms of, like, morality. But nonetheless, we view the world around us and make connections, we make thought experiments, trolley problems, stuff like that, and try and come to a moral consensus. And that's what we do, and that moral consensus can change. And that's a good thing. No society that is static in terms of its belief systems survives for long. Random invite with 15 bits. Food for thought. A lot of Green voters wouldn't show up to vote if it wasn't for Green and making them less likely to vote. Hurts down ballot elections. Otherwise, hope Biden wins. The Green Party is not significant enough that I think it matters almost at all. Baja Blast says, hey chat, Nicole Bad Bunny from Twitch, who we raid frequently, lost her bunny Neville today. He was sick for a while. Go send her some love on Twitter. She definitely needs it. Can't imagine losing a pet. Yeah, that was sad.
Sense, at that point, the society would be theoretically open. This is the part that Hayek agreed with, anti-metaphysics and individualism. He was really more focused on economics. Again, good work there, but still, these guys were trying to prevent World War III by waging war purportedly on collectivism in favor of the open society. But today,
Right. Collectivism isn't necessarily a good thing, John, and societies often operate not on entirely one or entirely on the other in terms of either collectivism versus individualism. Ideally, you want a good balance where you have a society in which people can come together and, for the good of everyone, make decisions that will be positive. I would argue, like, America is leaning too far on the individualism side. You see this in terms of, like, crazy people who are like, I'm not going to wear a mask. Masks are stupid. You can't make me my freedoms. They're leaning too hard on the individualism angle and caring too much about what their own, like, personal feelings are as opposed to what is actually good for the community based upon scientific evidence, right? So there's always this struggle. individualism, collectivism, and you're always kind of going to go back and forth on it because, again, the morality of a society is entirely based upon its population, and its population is consistently changing not only because of birth and death, but because people change as they grow and learn throughout their lives. But, like, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, John. It's not a bad thing that society's moral compass is based around the ideas of those who live within it. That's how self-governance works, John. Like, the government should make decisions based upon what the population believes and wants. That's how representative democracy works.
What I'm asking you is this. Is it really that black and white? This thinking has corrupted modern conservatism to where we think that either we exist as the individual or the collective. And the collective means 1984, so that's no good. The truth is there's no such thing as the individual, which is a liberal idea, by the way. That doesn't mean that you don't have individual rights. Of course you do. That doesn't mean that you can't live your life as you please. Of course you can. But from the moment that you are born, you are not defined as an individual. You are a son or a daughter, and then maybe a brother or a sister, an American, later on a mentor, whatever. At no point do you ever exist as an individual. You're really not that special because you rely on other people and people rely on you. And it's that interdependence.
I'm glad John is actually, like, saying this because this is true. I agree. We are individuals in the sense that, like, you have your own thoughts and feelings, but at the end of the day, we are defined often by our relationships to others, whether they be literally related to us or their friends or even just people in society as a whole that we have an effect over by our actions. True.
And cohesion upheld through a common culture that is the foundation of a prosperous and flourishing society. Now, that being said, there's really no such thing as the collective either. It's been tried before, but it fails every time because it defies the natural proclivities of human nature. My point is there's actually a balance between individualism and collectivism that is necessary to live in a stable, free society. Because if
And I agree with that. The difference is that John would think that the balance should be more in favor of the individual, and I think the balance should be more in favor of, not even necessarily in favor of, but closer to the collective, right? Like, I believe that making sure that everyone in your country, ideally everyone in the world, but we only have purview over our own country, has the right to things like healthcare, and making sure people have shelter, and they're not starving to death, and they're not dying because they can't have insulin that they need to live. These things, I think, are worth fighting for and worth giving up some bits of individualism for in terms of maybe paying a little bit higher taxes, but really in the United States we need to fix the system so rich people are paying taxes that they actually owe, changing the tax system so they can't get away with, like, paying, I don't know, let's say you're a billionaire who's the president and you only pay $750 in taxes over like a decade, or if you're Jeff Bezos or you're Amazon and you're paying like no taxes despite the fact that you make a ton of money just because you put that money back into R&D or whatever, and therefore it doesn't actually show up as profit. Like, these are all issues that we need to work on as a society. John and I have different opinions on where that needle needs to go on the scale of, like, individualism versus collectivism. I think he's very hard on the individualism, where I'm, you know, I think I'm a good balance, but he'd probably think he's a good balance too, even though he's not. And I'm probably not either. There's no such thing as a center. It's kind of imaginary.
There's nothing funny about the tools.
MMO addicted with 50 bits. I don't have social relationships. I'm a week-long quarantine hermit who just throws bits at Hannah and grumbles under their breath. My major human contact is the driver who brings me shopping, who is a huge racist homophobe and a COVID denier. Oh, yikes. And then Wind Chanter with 10 bits. Hannah, you... Oh, I assume that's supposed to be don't. Hannah, you don't want people to starve to death or die from curable diseases in the wealthiest country? How radical. I know, right? I'm almost as radical as that Joe Biden fella. That's my favorite thing from this election cycle, is people on the right trying to paint Joe Biden as a radical.
If you focus only on individualism, like we've been doing for the last 100 years, then there's nothing left to unify people in society. No language, no culture, no religion, no shared value framework. The only thing we have in common is that we got nothing in common. But it's okay, because we're all individuals. And then you look outside, everything's on fire, society is totally destabilized, and then the government overcorrects for that, and that's when you get your collectivism and your big government, which is based...
Corn Pop was a tough dude. I understand that reference.
Basically what we're experiencing right now, because it turns out that you can't actually tell people that to care about things like nation and culture is archaic and uneducated. That to be a somewhere instead of an anywhere is lesser than.
It's not about not caring about culture, John. It's about understanding that these things are not the best. You can care about your culture and care about American culture without saying, oh, America is the bestest nation in the history of planet Earth, and anyone who says different, I'm gonna fight them. Like, there's a difference between saying, oh, I appreciate American culture, which I do too, by the way. I think American culture is fun. Zaffern, thank you for following. Thank you, Neeser Scoporter for following, and then Windchant. Oh, I already read the Windchanter one. Thank you for following, both of you. I enjoy American culture too. American culture has brought us a ton of cool stuff. A lot of really great music, thanks to the African American community. A lot of great movies, and the art form of film as a whole was sort of birthed out of America and Hollywood. Like, America has amazing cultural contributions to the world and amazing inventions, and these things are fantastic. That doesn't change the fact, though, that you don't get to be like, haha, look at the good things my culture has, your culture sucks. Like, it's fine. And it's also childish to then look at, like, American culture and say, all right, this is what it is. That's the end of it. No more changes. Culture is about change. All culture changes over time. You can enjoy your culture while still understanding that that culture is going to change with demographic changes, with immigrants coming in, especially in the United States, because we're, again, and I know, we're a melting pot. We are. It's a cliche, but America is made up of so many different cultures. When new people come in and new groups of immigrants come in, they bring bits and pieces of their culture, and then those things become part of American culture. And as twee as it might be, it's nice. It's a cool thing. So, where was I going with this? It's kind of meandery, but at the end of the day, I just want to say, John, no one is saying you can't like American culture, but in terms of, like, nationalism, that's a little bit different, right? It's okay to like your country, it's okay to like where you live and have respect for your government, provided that they're, you know, operating well and without corruption. However, if your idea of nationalism is USA, USA, every other country can suck my dick, that's not great. That's not nationalism, that's jingoism, and that's not good, right? It's okay to be like, man, I sure do like America because it has this thing, this thing, this thing, and this thing. But also, wow, cool for Canadians. They have their own thing going on, and I'm very happy that they're happy with their governance because they also have self-governance and they might operate a little differently, but I'm happy for them. And oh, same thing with, you know, other countries out there, ideally in situations where they have, like, representative government, but nonetheless, the point is, it's fine to enjoy the place you live and the culture in which you reside, John. Most people do. Most people enjoy the place that they're from. That's part of human nature, and they enjoy the culture that sort of birthed their identity, because in many ways our identities are the result of the culture in which we're brought up in. So it makes sense that these things feel cozy to us, that these things feel right, because we were formed within them. But that doesn't mean you get to say, because this is where I was from, and I love it, that means everyone else better love it too, and we're the best ever, and if anyone tries to make any sort of statement that maybe there are problems with America or our policing system or our healthcare system or anything, then you suck, because America's good by definition. And if you ever insult my mommy America again, I'm gonna beat you up. Like, that's childish, okay? You can like your country, you can love your country, if that's how you even want to put it. You can like or love your culture, but at the end of the day, that doesn't make it perfect, and you need to be open to it changing, because it's going to. No culture in the history of the world has ever stagnated long enough to actually matter. And two, you need to be able to accept that there can be things that need to be changed within the systems in that country.
And we'll get into that more in a second. But you can't expect a century of post-war intellectualism to conquer human nature. So that
MMO Addicted, have I seen this? Let me see what this is. Twitter shuts down entire network to slow spread. Oh yeah, he's spreading absolute conspiracy theories. Yeah, he thinks Babylon Bee is not satire. Lovely. And then the Undercover Beast with a $10 donation. I gave like $17 in bits randomly rambling about Star Wars last time I donated, so here's $10 to simply say I love everything you and Jake have done for many years now. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and discoveries on these important issues. Thank you, I appreciate that.
That's basically the intellectual part. Now, the authoritarian part, which is basically, okay, how do we stop people from thinking they get to declare something to be true? So a bunch of sociologists got...
Tucker White 94, outside of the Olympics, I've never understood the idea of putting value in national identity, especially when you're being born in the United States was nothing more than happenstance. I agree. I think it could be fun. I think nationalism in the Olympic sense, if there's a way to I think that's a good explanation, is fun. Oh, we're doing a sporting thing. Yay, guy who's from America, you run real fast, hooray! But, like, if you're seriously in, like, geopolitical situations being like, we deserve everything because we are America, and America is the best, and we have a big military, and if you don't do what we want, we gonna shoot ya. That's bad. That's bad nationalism.
Together at UC Berkeley, many of them members of the Frankfurt School, which was a group of Marxist intellectuals who fled to America during World War II, and they published a work called The Authoritarian Personality. And it sought to answer two questions. Firstly, what makes a person a potential fascist? And secondly, how can we prevent people in the United States from being socialized into that mindset? So they go through a bunch of...
Is John Doyle, baby fascist, about to criticize a work that warns about fascism? Because... perfect.
charts and interviews and correlations. A lot of it actually depends on one of the Freudian theories of psychological development that has now been totally discredited, and the survey questions are totally biased. The work itself is just tremendously flawed from the standpoint of methodology, but what's alarming is that their conclusion was that the potential fascist is an American who was raised in a hierarchical family that supports a dichotomous conception of right versus wrong and man versus woman, which means that if you were raised in a relatively normal American family and you were taught right from wrong and then
That's not what they said, John. That's not what they said, even based on what you just said. It's not about being taught right from wrong. It's about thinking, this is right and wrong, not because of the moral implications in terms of, like, what it's going to do to harm other people. It's right or wrong because God said so. This is right or wrong because morality is black and white, and you do what's right because it's right, without any thought to why you might have certain ethical upbringings, without actually questioning your own moral compass from time to time. That's bad.
that men are men and women are women, congratulations. You're a potential fascist. And we can...
I mean, you are, John. You are a fascist, so... congrats?
laugh about that, but the publication ends with the author saying that there's not much...
Remember that time John Doyle opened a video praising the idea of physiogamy? That was fun. Definitely not a fascist or a Nazi or anything. Cool beans.
that can be done about adults who manifest authoritarian personalities, and so attention must be turned to children. And social scientists must work to teach children values of egalitarianism, democracy, subjectivism, openness, etc.
Which are all good things. MMO addicted with 10 bits. Baby. He is no baby. He's full fash. God, I wish he'd go back in his Subway. He used to give Subway employees a bad name.
Because that is the only way to prevent authoritarianism and great conflict. Sounds great.
Yeah, I feel he needs to do something on his set. With how colorful this is compared to, like, this, I just realized how desaturated everything in his set looks. Does he have the saturation on his like, either in post he's desaturating, or he's like... Because, like, look at the red in this MAGA hat. MAGA hats are normally a lot brighter than that. MAGA hat. Doom, 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 doom. Or maybe he bought a bootleg one. Like, see, they're pretty darn red. And then his just looks kind of drab. You gotta jack up that saturation, John.
But here we are
Very low energy color scheme right now.
now, living under increasing authoritarianism and existing basically as a tinderbox of 330 million people who feel isolated, depressed, and without purpose. But we're told that we should just ignore that because we have access to cooler and cheaper products.
Yeah, that's a problem with capitalism, John. You're criticizing capitalism right now, which I don't think you're intending to do, but that's what you're doing? Do you realize that's what you're doing? MMO addicted with 50 bits. I mean, between Subway Jared and John Doyle, I don't know who's worse PR, and he has to lower the saturation to seem whiter and less colored. Jared is a worse PR thing, because people know who Jared is. No one outside of people like us know who John Doyle is.
The tools of capitalism.
I probably wouldn't even know if I wasn't also from Michigan. Winch Chanter with 18 bits. Are we going to look in on Lord of Clocks or Jeremy today? I don't think so. Not today. I'm taking a break from Lord of Patriarchy. Maybe permanent, just because I don't feel like... He only has 10,000 subscribers. And he's kind of desperate for attention from Jake and I kind of think it's funnier to not give it to him. And Jeremy, I didn't see any good videos that I wanted to cover. Tucker White 94, teaching kids what's right and wrong. First, who decides what's right and wrong? Second, what happens when your idea of right and wrong conflicts with your parents' ideas of right and wrong? Well, I never dealt with it, even with a very religious mother. How many other people probably got disavowed for just being an atheist? Yeah. Like okay, let's give an example. My parents, my dad, not a fan of trans people, not even a fan of gay people, and his brother's gay. Like, if I just took what he believed for granted and believed those same things, then I would similarly be a homophobe, and I'd still be in the closet about being trans and bi, right? And John, of course, thinks this is a good thing. John doesn't like gay people. He might be like, no, I don't hate gay people. Let's be clear. If John Doyle was in charge of the country and he was a dictator, he would ban being gay immediately. Like, he would. And when I say ban, I don't mean like, oh, you're gonna get a fine. I mean, you're gonna get the wall kind of ban, and it'd be real bad. So yeah, people like this, they're not fans of people being allowed to be the kind of person they are. In fact, I don't even think they believe that there are just like trans or gay people. I think they probably think that it's like because of the degenerate culture in which we live, and you know, not because society is open and allows people who are not heteronormative to be. It allows them to exist without as much persecution as there was in the past. Argonian Bum, is Jake taking a break from politics? He isn't doing streams lately. I'm not sure. I really don't. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. We haven't been talking a lot recently. It kind of makes me sad. I don't know.
Speaking of products, shamelesscommercialbreak.exe. Hey, it's me again. I know it might be a little confusing because I'm wearing different clothes, but it's actually still John Doyle. I'm actually the same person. Here's the thing. Everything's starting to open back up, which means that you're going to be taking that laptop of yours into public, maybe the coffee shop, maybe your local library, the airport, wherever you need to go to let everybody know that you're working on something big, the big project. Am I projecting? Maybe. But the point is that when you access public Wi-Fi networks, hacker emails, why you internet
VPN ad,
speed,
generic VPN ad.
So
VeggieTales,
I use it whenever I'm in public so that people can't find out what I'm doing on my computer.
I owned the VHS of Josh and the Big Wall. I liked VeggieTales a lot as a kid.
You can get .com. So you're so intelligent and handsome. But anyways, we've had our very brief history lesson as to what set the stage for Donald Trump. We've had 70 years of the...
Who wants to start doing the Rule 34, where it's Video John making out with Ad John? Someone Rule 34 that.
Post-war consensus, 70 years of the left embracing progressivism, and 70 years of the right embracing, well, don't do anything, because if you do something, that might be authoritarian or something. And it's got us where we are now.
Please, Lord, help me find these right-wingers who are concerned about being authoritarian. Please. I would love to meet these people.
And this really accelerated after the Cold War with the Bushes, Bill Clinton, etc. Because basically what we've had for the last...
Have I researched the nut bar behind VeggieTales? Saberspark did a good video on it? No. Why? Why did I like VeggieTales? Because I grew up with it as a kid. I recognize as an adult it's very silly. I mean, it's supposed to be silly. But, like, I recognize it's like, is it fair to show this to kids? And John, I don't think John watches my videos, so it doesn't matter. Of course, he can't watch porn, so maybe he does watch my videos just to crank one out now and then. I don't know. But, yeah, it's on the indoctrinating side. I get it, but I like it because I watched it as a kid. Has John Doyle even begun to address the topic of his video? Not yet. No, we're 10 minutes in. I'm sure he'll get to it soon.
30 years especially is slightly deviating but ultimately inconsequentially different strains of neoliberalism. And what that means is that whether it's
Quill of Numenor, thank you for following.
with the Bushes or Barack Obama, we've gotten three things: open borders, free trade, and the forever
John,
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
when did Obama do open borders? I think Obama locked up more illegal immigrants than Trump. He wasn't doing as much child separation, although he was doing some. Again, I criticize Obama because I'm not a hack, and I can criticize people regardless of their political affiliation, unlike John. What are you talking about? Obama was like a little bit left of center, if I'm being charitable. He's still engaged in tons of, like, war bullshit, droning people. Where were the open borders, John? Please, I want to live in the reality you live in where you think that's true. 74 Quinn 74, I also liked VeggieTales, I know what you mean. Yeah. Shady Shroomy, I liked VeggieTales as a kid until I watched that Joan and the Whale movie because the movie ends with John being abandoned and then a song. It made me depressed as a kid, yeah.
forever wars. It is the centrist redemption arc. Dude, maybe both parties really are the same.
Obama, okay, here we go. Random invite. Obama in his first term did more deportations than Trump, but Trump did start doing separations, making the camps worse. Yeah. Yeah. Pick your poison.
And George Bush Sr. really got this going because when
I've not heard the ANCAP song, no.
the Cold War was over and America needed a purpose, America needed to find its raison d'etre, George Bush declared to the United Nations General Assembly, himself being a veteran of World War II and understanding that mass destruction that we discussed earlier, that the goal of the United Nations after World War II was to build a new kind of bridge, a bridge between nations, a bridge that might help carry humankind from its darkest hour to its brightest day. And he said that he sees a world of open borders, open trade, and most importantly, open minds. And it was the implicit goal of the United States to impose its...
Oh, maybe we did watch this the other day, because I saved her.
Haters ain't debaters. Scream about roads now. Taxman got the papers. Banning gold or crypto, but laws cannot contain us. And it
Yeah, I watched part of this the other day.
Must take.
Oh, ANCAPs. I remember when I had my first beer. That makes me think of that line from Step Brothers for some reason. MMO addicted with 10 bits. If memory serves, if you extrapolate Trump to cover the same period, it's a similar, slightly higher amount, and I think drone strikes rose under Trump's administration. Saw something like that recently, but I researched this months ago, and it may be wrong. Either way, Obama's shit, but lesser shit. I'd look into it, but already depressed, so goes to sleep. Yeah. Altered Rin with 25 bits and a link. I'll click that in a sec. Wind Chanter with 20 bits, as Patton Oswald says, anyone you vote for is eventually going to give you that moment of, I don't know if that's good, like Obama's giant flying death machines. Yeah. We're in the United States, folks, and unless we make some pretty severe foundational changes, there's not going to be a single politician in power in the United States that you're going to entirely agree with. Voting for someone is not supposed to be marrying them. You're not supposed to love them unconditionally and think they're never gonna do you wrong. It's... what's a good example? It's... I feel like there was a good example of this a while back, and I can't remember what it was. It's not getting married and loving the person. It's like, I can't remember what the original metaphor is, so I'll say it. It's booking a flight somewhere. You want a pilot who's going to do their job. They're going to get things done. If problems arise, they're going to be able to make sure that they can handle those problems and get you as close to your location as you need to, right? That's what I expect out of a politician. Or like picking a lawyer, sure. That's pretty good.
consensus of neoliberalism on the rest of the world, open borders, open trade, and open minds. They thought that if they opened up the borders economically and allowed other countries to get richer by trading with the United States, those countries would become more democratic. Narrator, they were wrong. They thought that they could play world police and force non-democratic countries to embrace democracy. Narrator, they were wrong.
I agree with John on that one. Don't try and be world police. Ends up bad for everyone. Except for if you're literally making money off of war profiteering. Then it's pretty good. But they're pretty extreme minority in the on the planet, you know?
And they thought that...
So if you're pre-Iron Man Tony Stark, then yeah, that's probably a good move. But everyone else, nah.
allowing for mass immigration would vindicate the theory of the open society. Narrator, they were wrong.
Well, we haven't ever had open immigration, so you can't really say whether or not that would be a good thing, can you, John? It's literally never been done.
This has been the neoliberal post-war consensus that the globe is before the nation, that the concept of the nation is archaic, and that globalism is in the...
Tucker White 94, okay, it's good to see that John Doyle is not a total idiot. He's a pretty big idiot still.
Enlightened. They thought that they could conquer the most consistent motif of human history, and your family suffered as a result. And that's why the Trump election is more consequential, because Donald Trump represents a deviation from that neoliberal consensus that we've had for the last 3 decades that has hollowed out the American family, that has destabilized the country, that has paved the way for radical leftism to march right through.
John, the things that have destroyed and hollowed out the American middle class, including, I guess, the family, if you think that's part of it, but more so I'd say it's a class issue than a family issue. It hasn't hollowed out the American family. It's allowed people who are non-typical to have their own families, right? Gay people, trans people, whatever. That's not hollowing out the American family. If we're talking about economically, yes, the middle class in this country has been hollowed out due to union busting, the consistent labor laws that benefit capital instead of labor themselves, the constant, how do I put this? The too big to failiness of the banks, that they haven't been allowed to collapse under their own complete ineptitude in terms of like the 2008 financial crisis and the upcoming one that's going to be really bad. Did you guys know that we're in a big old stock market bubble? It's going to pop. And I'm guessing it's going to pop under Biden. I feel like they're going to hold out on starting to sell off until Biden gets elected. So then right-wingers can say, like, it's Biden's fault, even though we've been in a bubble for quite a while. It's all very stupid. Anyway, John, part of the reason that the American middle class has been hollowed out, the main reason, is because the benefits of modernization and the benefits of automation have not benefited the working populace or the population as a whole. The benefits of higher productivity have actually been entirely funneled to the top 1% of those people who are in charge of these companies, despite the fact that they already have more money than any human being could ever spend in a lifetime. It's not good. And when push comes to shove, something is going to have to happen, because what we're doing currently in this like form of ultra capitalism, where it's always about, oh, next quarter we got to have a higher profit and a higher profit. It's not enough to just be a profitable company. You have to constantly be in growth. And you know what grows constantly without any consideration for the things around it or how it's going to function as part of the greater whole? Cancer! So this isn't going to end well. It's not. This is not a sustainable, like, system at all. I'm not even necessarily just talking. I'm not saying tomorrow if things collapse we're going to fall into, like, communism. I'm saying the form of capitalism that we have right now, where companies are allowed to do whatever they want with no consequences, it's not sustainable. It just isn't. Even if we went back to like a 1950s style capitalism where we had really high tax rates on the wealthy, companies were taxed reasonably, and unions were strong and labor had a voice in the places in which they work, it would be better than the system we have now. Oh boy, let me see what I missed in the chat. MMO Addicted, as we learned in a movie last night, union busting is fascist. Uncle Sam in the Great U.S. said that. True. We did watch that last night. The clip is on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. Tiger White 94. By what objective measure does Trump represent a deviation from anything? He's just as much of an establishment bitch boy as Obama, Bush Jr., Clinton, and Bush Sr. and Reagan. Yeah, but he says things that are mean to other people. So if he's like an establishment rich person who pushes the party line of helping rich people at the expense of the poor and middle class, that's fine because he triggers the libs. And that's all people like John Doyle want. Windchanter, why do I feel like it's going to literally take the majority of us starving in the streets before we get actual change in this system? Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. It's going to be real depressing. It's going to be bad. Especially for people like me and John Doyle. Not especially, but like in particular. Because, think about it. People start starving. John and I aren't going to be able to get any money. No one's going to be giving us super chats. No one's going to be buying our subscriptions or whatever. We're effed, and we have no marketable job skills. So, if it makes you feel better while you're starving in the streets, just know both me and John Doyle, we're starving with you.
And the public is very angry about it. I'm very angry about it. So yeah, we're going to put a billionaire reality TV star into the executive branch. Absolutely. 4 more years for President Cheeto. I don't care. Make him king. People are
Yikes.
always like, well, but John, you know he's not a principled conservative. I know that, dummy. You think I don't know that? That's the point. Think of everything that conservatism has always been about, or what the fake establishment-approved conservatives have told you that it's always been about.
MMO addicted with 10 bits. You can become a filthy landlord and mooch off Baja after convincing her to become a shill for some corporation. True.
And now be comfortable with the fact that those ideas...
Baja, when you get your PhD, go work in the private sector and we'll make bank. You'll make bank. And then I'll start landlording this property out, and then I'll slowly get more money and buy more property, and I'll become a tycoon like we're playing Monopoly in real life. And then we can become the disgusting capitalists that I'm constantly criticizing. Meanwhile, while I have a landlord empire, I'll still do this show and talk about the benefits of, like, we need to make sure, you know, that labor is taken into account and rent-seeking behavior needs to stop. I'm playing both sides, you see? Can't lose. That's the dark timeline of Hannah.
There's nothing
In
funny
principle-
about the tools of capitalism.
Windchanter with 10 bits. My uncle actually is an American slumlord. Yikes.
have failed, probably because they were never meant to succeed. We are going through extraordinary and unreasonable times, which quite frankly dictate extraordinary and unreasonable measures. There's nothing noble about losing, ever. We're talking about our country. We're not talking about like a pickup game, right? We're talking about the greatest nation in the history of the world, the redemption.
This is what I'm talking about, John. That makes you look like an idiot when you say that.
Of which being the greatest story in the history of the world, our culture is being eroded, our children are being corrupted, and our country is being taken from us, all orchestrated by the ruling class, by the anywheres who despise you. You very likely being a somewhere, because you're not enlightened, you're not cultured, you don't have a graduate degree.
You don't need a graduate degree to not be a dick, John. It's not about having a graduate degree. It's about not being an idiot and a cunt.
And when you're not like them, when you have ties to a town or to a family or to a community, you exist somewhere. But when you're in the ruling class, you have enough power to do whatever you want, to live wherever you want. You'll always be in a position to resist the consequences of your societal...
You know you're describing Donald Trump, right? You're also describing most of Congress and most of, like, the judicial branch. So, like, do you see the problem, John? People's extreme wealth is insulating them from real-world problems, and those are the people who are supposed to be tasked with fixing those problems. Do you see the issue, John? And how it's not tied to liberal or conservative, although I think conservatives are also bad. It's about class structure. It's about people who are so far above other people that consequences mean nothing, that they don't take actual real-world issues seriously because they have no frame of reference for those existing in their own lives.
Experiments by living in gated communities, then you exist as an anywhere. You have no ties to anything. You are above the concept of a nation because you exist in a different circle of people. And you think that makes you better than the rest of us.
Capitalism.
Chief Tony with 100 bits. Have the bits until we starve in the streets. Thanks.
That's the thing. They don't care about the American people. because there's no such thing. You're just relatively privileged people, and so they lie to you and convince you that they're working on behalf of you and your interests, and then they take that power and use it to advocate on behalf of the neoliberal world order. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is...
How can you say all of this accurate information about the wealthy elite that rule this country, and then say, but Donald Trump, he's different? No! John, he is emblematic of all of these problems. What are you talking about? He's so close to figuring it out. Yeah.
Is a maverick. The only...
He's a maverick. 74-year-old, rich since the day he was born, New York real estate tycoon, maverick.
thing they can't control right now is the executive branch. They can't control President Trump. He cannot be bought, and his ego is so big that even if he could be bought, the value...
He literally, his taxes were just came out, John. He literally owes people tons of money. So he kind of has been bought, okay? Do you get that?
The value of knowing that he's the guy to spearhead the fight to take America back is infinitely larger than any offer that they could give him. And they know that. And that's why they need him gone. That's why virtually the entire media is against him. That's why the...
Or it's because the people who tend to be in media, and I've talked about this before, people who tend to work in media are going to have more empathy on the whole than the average person in the population, because I've talked about this before too. America has an empathy problem. People like John Doyle have legit, I think, and again, I'm not a psychologist, I am not diagnosing anyone, I think they have a pathological empathy problem, that they are unable to view things outside of their own point of view. And people in the media, because of the nature of media and how it explores other people's lives, whether we're talking about newscasters or people who work in the movie industry or the TV industry where you're telling stories that are basically just machines built on empathy, they're going to tend to have more empathy. And more empathy is going to drive you towards more left-leaning, both social and tend to, not always though, economic positions. That's always highly based upon how much money you're already making, right? Having a bunch of money can corrupt you into being more right-leaning on economic issues for the benefit of yourself. But nonetheless, at the very least, people tend to be more left on social issues the more empathetic they are. So people in the media who are going to tend to be more empathetic in the first place are going to tend to look at Donald Trump and how horrifying he genuinely is and just be like, whoa, what's going on? So that would be why. And even so, I don't even think this is true across the board. A lot of corporate media, because of the very fact that it's done for profit, look at how much of Donald Trump's original, 2016 campaign was just broadcasted for free on, CNN and stuff. They gave the dude a ridiculous amount of screen time because it got eyeballs. So to say that the media is against Trump, I would say that many of the people who work in the media as faces, like people who are reporters and stuff, sure, but I'd also argue that a lot of people on the, let's say, CNN board of directors or the CEO of CNN, I'd imagine they're pretty happy with Trump, specifically because they get a lot of views because of him, and at the end of the day, the profit motive is what they're chasing, not some sort of moral good. Tucker White 94, Donald Trump can't be bought. Let's take a look at all the industries and companies that bought him in this election alone. Let's take a look, shall we? Top industries federal election data for Donald Trump 2020 cycle. This page shows contributions sorted by industry to the candidate's campaign committee, plus any super PACs and hybrid PACs. Oh boy, industry. This one just says retired, 137 million, Republican conservative, 35 million, real estate, 18 million, miscellaneous finance, 16 million, oil and gas, 12 million, securities and investment, 10 million, miscellaneous business, 9 million, health professionals, 7 million, miscellaneous manufacturing and distributing, 5 million, civil servants, public officials, 4 million. The way that the system in the United States is set up, where we have privately financed elections, every single politician is bought out. Period. Every single one. Unless you're someone who literally doesn't take donations from corporations and you only take them from individuals.
Institutions in this country, ranging from academia to federal law enforcement, are against him. That's why the administrative state, the deep state, is against him. Hollywood.
The deep state. I wish it was Tinfoil Tuesday so we could mark off deep state.
all of it. He is the single biggest threat to the plan of these people to fundamentally transform our country and make enough money while doing it to be immune to the effects of it. And that's really what's sad.
No. No, he's not. He's an existential threat to the United States, as it currently stands as a liberal democracy. Legitimately.
About the people who are so against him. If you asked any of them in isolation, hey, do you think the media lies? Do you think the ruling class lies? Oh, absolutely, no doubt. But then with Donald Trump, well, he's just actually the worst this time. They're telling the truth. They seriously don't understand how...
Why are you not counting Donald Trump in that? I can admit that CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all media organizations that operate for profit are going to have inherent bias, because everyone has inherent bias, but their bias is going to be driven by different interests, right? Fox News is going to chase the viewership of right-wing people. MSNBC is going to tend towards left-wing people. CNN is going to go for more sensationalism because they just like to be, CNN. But this involves Donald Trump too, right? I can both be skeptical of the media while also looking at the information and trying to look at the evidence that they've actually put forward for the stories that they're talking about, while also looking at Donald Trump and doing the same thing. The idea that Donald Trump is somehow in this bubble and exempt from this critical eye towards the wealthy is so bizarre, and it makes absolutely no sense.
About the tools of capitalism.
Tucker White 94, the deep state is against Trump. He is the deep state, yeah. Bellsthar with 15 bits. Have some bits. Start a train. I think bits only count towards hype trains if it's 100 or more, which isn't my rule. I think that's just how it's set up in Twitch.
How brainwashed they are.
It counts once the train starts, but in order to, start the train, it has to be, multiple 100 bits back to back to back or something.
To where a man who was elected because of bipartisan issues, hey, let's close the borders, let's get out of the forever wars, let's put the American worker and family first, that man is now, by plurality, the most hated man in the world because...
Yeah, because he's a jackass who makes an idiot of himself constantly, and his inaction on coronavirus has killed tens of thousands of Americans, and he continues to make light of it. The guy's an idiot, and he makes an idiot of himself every single day. People are fed up with every day turning on the news or waking up and looking at their phones and going, oh God, what did he do now?
Because of brainwashing meant to destroy.
Tucker White 94, here's a list of individual companies that have given money to Trump. 74 Quinn, 74 Train. Well, we'll see if it starts up at some point. Top contributors, federal elections for Donald Trump. America First, which is a super PAC, $17 million. Energy Transfer Equity, $10 million. G.H. Palmer and Associates, Blackstone Group, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Lots of interest groups and companies have given money to Donald Trump. As I'm sure they've given money to Biden, too. That's kind of how the disgusting electoral process in this country works. Thanks, Citizens United. You've single-handedly helped destroy democracy. He makes an idiot out of the U.S. every day. True. Quinn up in here conducting. Feel like if we get a couple more hundreds, we might start the hype train. I'm not sure, though.
Distract from the fact that he reflects the opinions of the public for the last several decades.
Not really. It just depends. Does he reflect the opinions of a lot of right-wingers? Sure. And if you're like a xenophobic asshole, sure. But not most people. Like, John, did you forget that he lost the popular vote by millions of votes in 2016? His opinions are not popular with the American people.
These people are convinced that they're anti-establishment.
Has John ever taken the mask off and admitted he bootlicks Q? Not to my knowledge. John's stupid in many ways, but more so I think he's just... What's the word I'm thinking of? I don't think he would buy in... For one thing, I don't think he would actually buy into the Q stuff. He's smart enough to know the Q stuff is BS. However, if it was advantageous for him politically, and in terms of his channel, to do that stuff, then he would. Right? He takes advantage of things, and I think he takes on opinions that, even if he doesn't fully believe them, if he thinks they will help get him to the place he wants to be politically, if they will help him push forward agendas that he thinks are good, then he will lie to do so. And YouTube is cracking down on QAnon stuff in general. So I think now would be a real bad time for him to try and get on the Q train.
Virtually every aspect of the establishment is on their side. It is the quintessential display of cognitive dissonance. And it's actually an argument against absolute individualism, too, because that presupposes that the individual has agency, which generally speaking is not true at all. So that being said, before we get into, what's going to happen if Trump loses, I'm begging you.
We're halfway through the video, by the way. This is taking forever.
With tears in my eyes, go vote for Donald Trump on November 3rd if you are 18 or older. Go in person if at all possible.
Hey, let's take this moment. If you're here, there's 133 people here. Please, for the love of God,
There's nothing funny
go
about
and
the tools of
vote
capitalism.
in November and vote for Joe Biden. Check your voter registration every day of the week prior just to make sure you haven't been purged from voter rolls, and then go and vote.
funny
Or
about
if you've
the tools
already
of
voted by
capitalism.
mail or early voting, that's fantastic. Thank you for doing so. But if you haven't, go and vote. Go and vote for Joe Biden. Guys, fireside chat time,
There's
okay?
nothing funny about the tools of
74
capitalism.
Quinn 74, 100 bits. I'm the Q train. And then Bellstar with 100 bits. Did the vote already, Hannah? Did the vote Oh, you did the vote. I
There's
understand.
nothing funny about the tools
So
of
fireside
capitalism.
chat, folks. Here's the thing. These past 6-7 months or however long I've been streaming have been a really good time, and there's been a lot to talk about because of the dumpster fire that is the Trump's first term, right?
There's nothing funny
Trump's
about
first
the
term.
tools of capitalism.
DM Trey, early vote gang, woot woot. Oh, the hype train started. There we go. 35% of level 1. And it's been great. It's been great being able to talk about this stuff. It's been a good way of coping with the fact that everything is on fire and it is a nightmare. But, and this is a big but, I do not want to spend the next 4 years
nothing
dealing
funny
with
about
this
the
shit
tools
on
of
Chud
capitalism.
Watch. You know what I want to do on Chud Watch? Starting, in January. I want to start doing on Chud Watch. Like, obviously, we're going to continue to cover Doyle and Sargon and all these people and Liberty Hangout who are,
nothing
of
funny
course,
about the tools
if
of
Biden wins,
capitalism.
going to freak out. And that'll be great. But I also want to be like, let's look at what Joe Biden did today, and I disagree with it, but let's talk about it. That'd be great. You know how calming that would be, relatively
There's
speaking,
nothing
for me
funny
to
about the
disagree with
tools
Joe
of
Biden?
capitalism.
Oh my god. Please, folks. Vote for Biden so we can bully him. Please. Bumble Homestead with 100 bits, thank you very much. Woohoo Lulu with 20 bits, thank you. Skywise8 with
funny
100
about the
bits, I
tools
voted
of
by mail for
capitalism.
Biden. I hate him, but he's better than Trump. Good call. Winds Chanter with 30 bits. Can we get a stream where you do a comprehensive timeline of the Trump presidency? That would drive me insane, so I don't know. Bellstar with 70 bits. Choo Choo also
There's nothing funny
vote.
about the
Yes,
tools of capitalism.
vote. Vote. Even if you don't like Biden and you don't really care, I'll appeal to you in a selfish way. In terms of Chud Watch, okay? Let me pitch this to you.
There's nothing
It's
funny
no,
about the tools
it's
of
let
capitalism.
me see. I think November 3rd is the Tuesday that we're voting. November 3rd. So probably not that day, but it's Friday the 6th of November. There's a chill in the air. Leaves are still falling from the trees.
There's nothing funny about the tools
And you
of
sit down to watch an episode of Chud Watch, and it's me giggling hysterically for 4 hours while we watch video after video of weird conservatives crying about Trump. John Doyle
nothing funny about
telling
the tools
everyone
of
that it's over,
capitalism.
folks. The deep state is won. Sargon barely holding on as we see a man broken, both from his loss in the UKIP election of past
nothing funny about
and
the
that
tools of
PTSD
capitalism.
coming back as Trump loses. We can see Caitlyn Bennett maybe shit her pants again. That seems like something that would happen. We can see
There's
the
nothing
most
funny
beautiful
about the tools
things,
of
okay?
capitalism.
We can see the quartering making a salty video about how Biden has dementia or something. It'll be beautiful, okay? Do this for me, fam. I want that
There's
episode of
nothing funny
Chud
about the
Watch.
tools
I
of
want it so
capitalism.
bad. Okay, let's see. Ooh, my voice is starting to hurt. Chief Tony with 100 bits. I want Chud Watch to turn into seeing them cry because Daddy Trump lost.
There's
Very
nothing
much so.
funny about the tools
Chesabel
of
with 100 bits.
capitalism.
Does this add to the tradition? Stone Corbell with 5 gifted subs. Thank you. Toween24. Hopefully Chud Watch will be
nothing
FBI
funny
raids
about
of
the tools
Boogaloo
of
Boys
capitalism.
House Watch. That'd be nice. And then Chesabel with 100 bits. Stone Corbell rocks. Yes, they do. And then Lexa Black, 45 bits. Vote, choo-choo. Yeah.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Oh boy, my throat hurts. Let me drink some water. Sorry. Okay.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Whew. My throat's very dry today. I was definitely snoring last night.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Possible because they're going to try to steal this election legitimately. There's a video plan for that, but I'll give you this task. Think of it like homework, and I mean this seriously.
Yes, the Democrats are going to steal the election. Meanwhile, the California Republican Party is literally putting up fake drop boxes for your ballots. Get fucked, John.
Bring 2 or 3
Winds Chanter with 30 bits. It's 2021. Biden has won the election. Chuds everywhere have been placed on terrorist watch lists because of multiple failed separatist movements and actions. That picture of the bald person doing this? That's how I feel about that statement.
3 apolitical friends or family members to vote too. You're smart enough and you care enough to convince people who aren't, that interested in politics, people who don't care enough to go vote. You're capable of convincing them to vote for Trump. So do it. Bring them with you. Go out to breakfast beforehand. I mean that very seriously. I want everyone watching right now to think of 2 or 3 people.
Where are the fake drop boxes? It's in California. A judge just told the California Republican Party to stop, and they said, no, we're not going to stop, so we'll see what happens with that.
Right now, who they could bring, who they could convince in the next couple weeks to vote for Trump. Get on that. Seriously, don't just think, yeah, that's a good idea, but everyone else is going to do it, so I don't really have to. That's lazy, and that's why we're here in the first place. Everybody just wanted to get high and listen to Led Zeppelin 4, and now we're literally one election away from losing our country. And I'll explain why right now. But seriously.
You're over halfway through the video, John. We get it.
Take charge, man. We need you. Just get 2 or 3 people. Make that your mission. If everybody watching does that, everyone got a couple people to vote for Trump, extra people,
18%.
extra votes, over 100,000 more votes for Trump, probably, which might not seem like a lot, but it came down to less than 11 votes last time. So please make a point to do that by election day, because if we lose, here's what's going to happen. The first thing that will happen is a totally manufactured and artificial period of reunification. This will be propagated by the same apparatuses that spent the last 5 years dividing the country and
Chesabel with 100 bits. Train.
demonizing Donald Trump. We will be told that we can now move on as a country. We can come together and heal and make sure that some...
I will be very annoyed by that too, actually. Wind Chanter with 50 bits hats. I guarantee Joe Biden will come in and be like, we need to unify as a country, blah, blah, blah. No, none of that bullshit. I'm not all about that. Trump has shown that we have a serious issue in this country with a bunch of radical fucking crazy people on the right. I do not want unification with these people. I want them to be shamed into never voting again. I'm not talking about taking anyone's rights away. I want them to be ashamed that they ever did this. I want them to feel ostracized from society, and I don't want them to ever exert their political will on the people of the United States ever again. These people are shit, and I do not want them to be part of the fabric of the society in which we live.
Something like Donald Trump never happens again. Sound familiar? The return of the never again, paving the way for the destruction of Americanism.
Tucker White 94 with 10 bits. Oh Christ, John Doyle's just repeating the death of America talking points I hear every 4 years. Rush Limbaugh was saying the same back in the Bush years. Yep.
These apparatuses will also elevate never-Trump conservatives, so-called principled conservatives, to give the illusion of bipartisanship.
Crystal Cat with 200 bits. Hats for Hannah. Yeah, I think we got level 2. I think we got level 2. That's what we got to. I'll put on... I definitely want to do a professor hat. I'll probably do both professor hats.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
As soon as Joe Biden is sworn and I want the Lincoln Project guys to drone strike in Minecraft, they're ass clowns that will try to rehab the American right. They're scammy anyway. They say that they're like, oh, we're trying to convince right-wingers to not vote for Trump. It's not happening. They're just siphoning money. Like, other political organizations could be getting the money, but a bunch of dumb liberals are like, yeah, give money to the Lincoln Project. They're gonna change the right's mind on Trump. Oh my god. How about you actually give that money to a political organization that matters? Fuck the Lincoln Project.
To give the illusion of choice so that the public is compelled to think, oh, okay, well, no, they're fine with conservatives. It was just President Trump that was bad. Okay, I guess they really were telling the truth. This is done not only to gatekeep the national dialogue and keep the Overton window of politics in the neoliberal consensus, but also as a psyop to ascribe legitimacy to the media after 5 years of blatant lying and disinformation campaigns. And then simultaneously, you'll see articles being published in conservative publications, some of which you're probably a fan, declaring Trumpism to be dead. And they'll echo the sentiment of the media. They're going to seek to return to true conservative principles like low taxes, small government, and the Second Amendment. For the time being, the left will allow it. But in the meantime, Trumpism will be silently purged from social and mainstream media.
I hope it is. But here's the thing. All of this is going to be bullshit. All of it'll be bullshit. I actually agree with John here. If Biden wins, there'll be this, like, media thing. They'll act like, oh, well, that's the end of that. That was a weird 4 years. And they'll act like it's not an issue. And then as, like, stuff starts ramping up for 2024, some other, whether it's Donald Trump again, because if he loses, he can always run again. But I don't think he will. If he loses, I don't think he'll run again. But let's say in 2024... Don Jr. or someone else, or one of his other kids decides to run, that would gain steam immediately. The people who support and voted for Trump are not going away. Period. They're not, and they're not going to be convinced they're wrong. This is the Republican Party now, guys, and we have to contend with that. Like, we have to deal with this, because it's going to continue. No matter how much the media is like, oh, everything's fine now if Trump loses, it's not going to be. It's not.
The momentum of the war against Trump will be concentrated on his supporters.
Oh God, Tucker Carlson running for president. Kill me now.
Specifically as outspoken supporters with large platforms and influence. People who are affiliated with larger companies or organizations will be forced to quietly follow suit or be fired. Will be told that his trade policy was simultaneously...
You know, groups of Republicans that are voting for Joe because how Trump handled COVID. I hope that's true. I find anecdotes like that to be not... I find them not to be helpful, and I tend to not believe them. I'm not saying you don't believe what you're saying. I'm saying if you have heard in real life of Trump voters who are like, I was wrong, I'm going to vote for Biden, I don't believe them. I don't. Tucker Carlson has a baby penis. It's possible. Chuds are already turning towards Tom Cotton, the guy who committed treason by telling Iran to break the Iran deal pre-Trump. Oh, lovely. And can you imagine? Think about this. We're very lucky that Trump is an idiot. Like, Trump is an idiot. Trump is an idiot. He is. He says really, really stupid things. If there was a smarter conservative, if there was a smarter far-right fascy type guy or gal who knew how to dog whistle better, but they still dog whistled, and they didn't make stupid statements every other day on Twitter, but still towed that line... Then we're in big trouble. We're already in trouble, but that would be even worse. Because centrists, the idiots that they are, cannot read dog whistles at all. They just don't think they exist. So, like, if you could literally have some presidential candidate from the right doing full-on, like, 1488, the 14 words stuff on Twitter, and centrists wouldn't get it. And even if they're told, they'll be like, oh, I'm sure it's a coincidence, because centrists are idiots. Andrew Dickerson, here's a best-case scenario. Trump loses it. Instead of passing the torch on Inauguration Day, he'll flee the country to Russia and live there until he dies, since Russia doesn't have extradition policy with the U.S. Doubt. Very much doubt. That'd be funny, but no, that's not going to happen. Anyone who has the delusion that Trump is going to face some sort of justice after like, he loses the election, if he does, is out of their minds. It's complete fan fiction. Like, the idea that, like, oh, the New York, you know, Department of Justice is going to get him for tax fraud or something. It's not going to happen. Period. No. The American justice system is not set up to actually make rich people atone for the bad things they've done. It's not going to happen. You have that delusion. It's a beautiful delusion. I agree it would be great, but it's fan fiction, and it's not going to happen. These are two hats.
Disastrous and ineffective, that it was undiplomatic, that it was isolationist, it was outdated, it hurt the GDP. We'll be told basically the same thing with his foreign policy, that he's the reason those regions were destabilized, that we have to maintain a presence in the forever wars, that our post-war imperative is to engage in wars for liberalism, to enforce democracy at the barrel of a gun. How does that make sense? Doesn't have to. And with immigration, we will be told that it was a racist overreaction to a non-problem, that it hurt the economy and the GDP, that in order to heal as a nation, we will have to overcorrect and put an even stronger emphasis on diversity being our greatest strength.
That'd be great. Not because of the GDP. I don't give a shit about the GDP. But yeah, I'm fine with immigration. It's fine. It's completely fine. Andrew Dickerson, I know that, but I think he'd flee the country. Doubt. Very much doubt. No chance. No chance Trump does that.
And that we can look forward together as a country, whatever that means at this point, and be excited at our future of wars for liberalism and open borders with immigration and trade, both of which displace American jobs and workers. And if you speak out against this future,
I'd call John Doyle a Ben Shapiro clone, but even Ben Shapiro understands the concept of brevity.
you will be censored. You will be fired. And about 10 years from now, you will be charged with hate speech. And as a
This doesn't sound crazy at all. Within 10 years, the entire First Amendment's gonna be disbanded because I can't say racist things at my place of work. Sure. Sure, John. Ooh, that's a good meme. It's a little bit like, sure, Jan. Sure, John.
Right now, the public disagrees with all of this. They agree with Trump, and they have consistently for decades. But the ruling class says, no, 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 don't believe your eyes. Don't trust your instincts. Listen to us, the experts who live in gated communities.
John, I'm all about recognizing the fact that wealthy people do not have our best interests at heart, but defining them as all experts is incredibly stupid, and how we got into a situation where so many people are dead from COVID because people don't want to trust experts on virology or communicative diseases. Like, let's not. Because a lot of the time, you know who you want to actually talk to about issues? People who are experts on those issues. Cool. Glad we had this talk.
We need the forever wars. We need 1 billion Americans. Why? To compete with China, who's actually only beating us literally because of the post-war neoliberal consensus. And we need to drain wealth from our country into China. Why? To compete with them. Who's with me? USA, USA. And that's just it. Trump didn't win because of socialism. Trump won because of trade, immigration, and foreign policy. And if we are to have a future, we have to focus on those issues the most, get into power, and then fight fire with fire and crush these people into the ground. Because you cannot convince nor argue with that which seeks to destroy. These people are not seeking to create. So your option is only to destroy them first.
MMO Addicted with 10 bits. In my honest opinion, the IRS investigation may ruin his reputation and lead to serious financial issues. Overall, though, he will not have prison time, but that is not the only kind of punishment in the world. In my opinion, he may have a mental break if he loses. If Donald Trump loses, the lame duck section. You thought the last, almost 4 years, the last 3.5 years have been a nightmare. Just wait until Trump has the powers of the presidency and absolutely nothing to stop him from doing whatever he wants because he doesn't have to worry about re-election. Why do libs love this so much? And then it's an article about Bruce Springsteen probably doing something to campaign for Biden or against Trump. It's stupid. I agree. It's stupid. Tucker White 94 with 10 bits. Does John Doyle think Donald Trump is ending the forever wars? 5 of his 8 vetoes were to keep those wars going. Yeah. It's stupid. Trump also, struck Iran with, missiles. So what the fuck is John talking about?
What we're fighting against doesn't care about you or your family.
In an action that even, John Bolton was like, what the fuck, dude? And then he also had, a leader assassinated. What, John, are you living in the same reality as the rest of us or what?
Your country, they're actively trying to destroy all of them. And they love nothing more than to hear you say, well, I won't fight back because I'm actually better than that. Because they probably paid someone to put that idea in your head in the first place. You can't reason with fire. You can contain it for a period, but ultimately you will have to extinguish it or it will destroy everything. That's where we're at. And it's only going to get worse.
Weirdly, I agree, but in my opinion, the fire is the weird far-right Republicans like John Doyle.
The economy will continue to be fake.
MMO addicted. Don't remind me. I have a friend being a medic at a military hospital, then to pay for this nursing school. I nearly had a heart attack when I saw the news. Yeah.
And rigged. Remember the wealth transfer during the pandemic? Right under our nose? Remember when literally hundreds of thousands of businesses were forced to close by the government, the majority of which will never reopen? They're out of business. Countless lives.
John, it's good that those businesses had to, like, close temporarily. The problem was when it came to giving stimulus, a lot of that stimulus money was siphoned off to large corporations. That's a problem. And that's a problem of the fact that a lot of the people in Congress are wealthy assholes with friends they wanted to give kickbacks to. Both people on the right and the left. It's messed up. I agree. But don't act like this is not also a Trump problem.
Livelihoods destroyed, but the people at the top who buy and pay for the people to make those decisions made more than $500 billion. That is probably the greatest offense against the American people.
Welcome to capitalism, John. It sucks.
That we will ever see in our lifetimes. And it really all comes down to money. And unfortunately, no one ever got rich shilling for the interests of the American people. What a grave sin it is with these politicians, these pundits, to selfishly monetize the hope of the public, to make millions promising to advocate for and represent them, only to do nothing but occupy space.
You're describing Donald Trump. You're also describing Donald Trump!
And pad their own pockets. Yeah, have fun while you can. You're gonna get yeeted into a lake of hellfire, my guy. It really is a great strategy. Like, you tell the left, everything is the fault of business. So then they're elected. They collaborate with big business to regulate small business into the ground. And then you tell the right that...
There's nothing funny about
Yeah,
the tools of capitalism.
liberals are awful. I agree, John. Again, he's so close to figuring it out. Yeah.
Businesses are actually the good guys against the bad guy, which is government. And then you get donations to conservative groups from big business so that everyone is too busy screaming, well, socialism sucks, to realize that they're actually being screwed over. So that's basically the trend with the economy. And that ties into everything else that's going to happen. And so we'll come back to that. But with immigration, Biden has already promised amnesty for illegal aliens. We've been told for years that there's only 11 million, but a Yale study suggests that it's actually 22 million.
That's fine. I don't care.
It's probably
They're already here, John. If they're already here, what's the issue?
even higher. And with 20 million new Americans now eligible to bring over family members because
How about you don't say Americans, John? If they were given amnesty and citizenship, they wouldn't be Americans. They'd be Americans, you fucking dweeb.
of chain migration, that really ends up looking like 40 or 50 million new Americans. That's all.
Can we... what is this? What is this? They would be Americans, John. They would be Americans if they were granted American citizenship. What is this? What the fuck is this about?
On the first term. So what happens then? Texas goes blue. Florida goes blue. Nevada, Arizona,
Oh. Yes, John. Keep going. You're gonna make me nut.
New Mexico, Colorado, those are cemented as blue, along with Virginia, Georgia, probably North Carolina too, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin.
Michigan has typically been a blue state in the first place. It was very shocking in 2016 when it wasn't.
Minnesota.
Blue in terms of presidential elections. It's more complicated that in terms of the governorship and Senate races and stuff.
Best case scenario, those are all now blue forever, which means best case scenario electorally, Republicans pick up 157 electoral votes in a presidential election, not even taking into account how the distribution of votes would change with the new Americans, plus the...
Stop doing this! John, if they were granted citizenship, they'd be Americans! What is this? What the fuck is this? I hate it so much.
fact that they'd be in charge of the 2020 census.
It's because they're not white.
So Republicans will never win the presidency again. We'll probably never have control of the House or Senate again. And even if we did,
oh yeah,
they just veto anything that we pass because they don't have to play ball with us anymore.
There's nothing funny
that'd
about
be
the
great.
rules of
Please,
capitalism.
please let this happen. Tucker White 94. Why doesn't he go after Trump on immigration then? He deported fewer people than Obama did and isn't on pace to overtake him even on a second term because he's a hypocrite. Because he's a hypocrite.
They've already won. So as a result, the Republican Party would either just die or morph into a much more progressive version of itself, which would allow the current Democrat Party to continue to shift the paradigm of American politics to them being democratic socialists, and then us being left with a much more liberal
nothing
version of the
funny about the
GOP,
tools of
probably
capitalism.
something akin to the 2008 or 2012 Democrat Party, and there's nothing you can do about it.
This all sounds wonderful. Thank you, John. Chief Tony, John needs to stop. I can only get so excited, Drew.
You didn't vote for this. Not in 1965 with Hart Celler, not in 1992 with Bush Sr. In fact, the public has consistently wanted less immigration, but who cares? Never in the history of the world has there been such a large migration of people as the one that we've experienced from Latin America to the United States since 1965. We're talking...
And that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter, John. You've yet to hear a bad thing about this future America? True. Sounds great.
60 million people. How do you assimilate 60 million people? You don't. And
Yes, you do, John. First-generation immigrants start to, naturalize, but by the time you get, like, second and third generation immigrants, they're completely integrated, right? You get that? That's, like, something that we've seen across all of American history. Often the first generation doesn't entirely assimilate, but then their kids and their kids' kids are completely assimilated. Like, that's fine. And their culture also enriches the rest of America. That's a thing. It's happened all the time.
And you can't. It's offensive that you even asked that. And they're doing this because it's their end game. That's how they win. And so at that point, there's no such thing as America anymore. The only thing that would suggest otherwise is that we still have the national parks. And
It's not America if there are non-white people here. Wah.
the flag looks relatively the same, but who knows how long that's going to last. For all intents and purposes, America is gone.
If the flag changes, are we even America? John, the flag has changed multiple times throughout American history, you dumb fuck. What?
At that point, the culture's gone, the language is gone, the history and the heritage are gone, the economy's dead, bought and sold by a transnational ruling class, and all we're left to do is buy products. And at that point, you're going to get everything. You're going to get hate speech laws, your guns are going to get taken from you, and if you think that you're going to fight back, okay, they'll kill you. They don't care.
Wins changer with 10 bits, as opposed to using gerrymandering and voter suppression to win, John.
It's what they wanted to do anyways. It's no skin off their back. And don't think that you can just hide off somewhere in the woods and try to keep to yourself. People have tried that before. I wouldn't know anything about that, but think early 1990s. And that was even before mass surveillance. You're also going to have to pay reparations.
Are you referencing the Unabomber? The guy who sent bombs to people?
As a part of this period of healing and celebration of diversity. And this isn't all happening overnight.
Tucker White 94, John Doyle shows how little he knows about the Hispanic people, considering Hispanic people who are largely socially conservative Catholics will then vote Democrat. It sort of depends. I mean, if we're talking about the abortion issue, then I imagine people from Latin America who are going to demographically trend towards Catholicism. Yeah, it's very possible they'll vote Republican, but I feel like their kids, when they get older, might not be, if the Republican Party continues to be the same as it is today, where it's pretty dog whistly and racist. I don't know.
By the way, but you will see all of this in your lifetime if the trends continue. And with the increased collusion between big business, big tech, and the government will come even more surveillance. Think social credit scores in China. Oh, you have the wrong opinions? Cool. Now you can't open up a bank account. Now you can't travel. You can't rent a car anymore. Oh, and you can forget about protecting your kids from this. You think you'll be able to afford that? The economy is going to get really bad for people like us. Not even taking into account the war that they're going to wage on us for being conservative, it'll be impossible. In fact, if we follow the trends, what will probably happen...
Cadams, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. The death of the GOP would be a good thing. I agree.
Is they will find out that you're raising your children to have an authoritarian personality, which will be defined as child abuse, and your children will be taken from you. Don't agree with the gender identity of your child? Oh, you're an unfit parent, so the state will step in.
Yes, please. If you're an asshole who refuses to accept that your kid's trans, if they're trans, please take them away. Winch changer with 10 bits. I propose we change the name of the Catholic Church to the International Association of Pedophile Protectors. MN Broodwick. MN, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Tucker White 94 with 10 bits. How much oil is flowing down John Doyle's slippery slope?
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Religious freedom's gone. You forget about that. That was just an excuse for bigotry. These people don't believe in God. They believe that they are God, and they believe that they...
Most people in the United States believe in God. I don't. I'm an atheist, but the vast majority of people in the United States are Christian, John.
Construct your society however they please. Private schools, abolished. Your kids will go to government schools.
I doubt private schools will be abolished. I very much doubt it. Although I wouldn't mind. I think that would be okay. what we would probably do is make sure public schools actually have the funding they need and maybe not fund them via property taxes. That'd be good.
Where they will be taught the 1619 curriculum. They will be taught to hate their country even more so. And at some point, it will be decided that children are a threat to the climate. So we'll have some form of child policy instituted like they have in China. Polygamy and polyamory.
I'm pretty sure China even backed off that more recently in
There's nothing
some of
funny
the
about
more
the
recent
tools of
years. So I
capitalism.
don't know what you're talking about there, John. Tucker White 94. Where is the atheist utopia John Doyle is screeching about? It? I want to move to it. Same.
Those are going to be next on the normalization queue. But it was cute that you thought that it was going to stop at gay and transgender people. Children will be increasingly sexualized. Pornography will become...
What is this slippery slope claiming that trans people will lead to pedophilia? This is an argument that always confuses me. Guys, what do you not understand about consent and the fact that children cannot consent? Like, what do you not understand between the difference between someone being gay and someone being a pedophile? Being gay is just being gay. They want to, like, have relationships with people of the same gender who are consenting adults. Pedophiles are attracted to a kind of person who can never consent. That's why that's wrong. You get that, right? Come on! It's not even close to the same thing.
more widespread along with drugs, particularly marijuana, anything to make the population as numb, pacified, and depressed as possible so that you can wake up every day, go to work.
I think John could use some weed. Maybe smoke a doob, John. I think you'll feel better.
Pay your taxes, buy your products without questioning anything. Oh, and trade policy will make that even worse for you. They'll continue to enact policies that allow the rich and themselves to benefit at the expense of middle-class Americans, and you will be told by them, along with mainstream conservatism, that being able to theoretically buy products at marginally lower costs is worth being raped of the dignity of the American dream. Same thing with war. It'll continue. The endless wars, the forever wars, the wars for...
If right-wingers had less of a voice in government, there would be fewer wars. Not none. I'm not saying that neo-libs wouldn't also pursue nation building in the name of, you know, keeping oil prices low or other things like that. Nonetheless, a lot of the stuff from our wars, John, like, do you think Obama started the Iraq war? John, no. That's not what happened. Tucker White 94, wake up, go to work, buy your shit without questioning anything. How is that different from now?
For liberalism. And a lot of this stuff, like I said, is not going to happen immediately, but you can definitely expect at least one new military conflict within the first term of the Biden administration.
I doubt that.
And even ignoring how it helps the economy, how they benefit financially with the military-industrial complex, it also serves as a great distraction. Hey, American people, we have to stick together. Those are the bad guys. The biggest threat to your freedom is coming from those guys on the other side of literally the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah.
You're literally describing everything the Republicans have done in terms of fear-mongering in the Middle East for like 20 years, John. Why are you projecting this onto the left when this is a right-wing talking point?
They hate us because we're free, not because we helped destroy their countries at an earlier stage of the forever war. Nope, it's because we're free. Fact check, we're not free. But they have to tell you that, so you focus on them. You focus on people that are literally thousands of miles away, have nothing to do with why you're not free. And maybe they benefit because all the people who sign up to fight in these forever wars, who love their country, these patriots, then they die in the sand because you lied to them about what they were really fighting for. Now we have less brave patriots around to actually defend our country. Just a funny hypothetical. I would never seriously suggest that. And all of this will be legitimized with talks of democracy, elections, everybody's voice counts, when really no one's voice counts. Democracy is just a psyop to legitimize neoliberalism and its consequences, and all that's...
What? Every time I look at John, I feel like his mask is down more and more. Democracy is a psyop to legitimize neoliberalism. Those goddamn neoliberal founding fathers. What? John, I don't know how to break it to you, but democracy's a good thing. Sorry, I know you don't seem to like it very much, but it is good. Can we not shit-talk democracy? Great. Tucker White 94, I feel like I'm watching a Looney Tunes short where you need to drop an anvil on someone to help them figure it out.
To come. We will be a one-party state, and our elections will basically become a game of hot potato for the ruling...
Hate on democracy to own the libs. Why is John Doyle a fascist? Oh, I don't know. The fact that he thinks that democracy is a neo-lib psyop. That certainly seems like a fascist viewpoint.
Class to take a turn in the spotlight, have their name in the history books, get a statue or two. The administrative state will grow. They will never be up for re-election. That's who run things. Trump has tried to get control of them, but they're pushing back hard. That's why I laugh when people are like, they're nominating Joe so Kamala can puppet. Not even. They know that they already have the power of the administrative state in every relevant institution. But I have it on good authority that the second Trump administration is going to be a lot better, a lot more competent. And
I know this first 4 years was fucked, guys. I know tens of thousands of Americans have died, and everything's gone to shit. But I have it on good authority that the next 4 years are going to be great. Doubt?
And that some serious changes will start to be made. But in the meantime, we can't let them demoralize us. This was never going to be fixed in 4 years or even 8 years. The task at hand is literally the greatest task in the history of our country, maybe even the world. But the point is that Donald Trump is just the beginning. He buys us time, he gives us hope, and he makes a dent or two, right? But this is literally something that we will spend our entire lives fighting, and our children and grandchildren will thank us for that endlessly. But in the meantime,
It's cute that John thinks he's going to get to have sex and have kids. That's nice.
popular culture will continue to promote degeneracy. It will continue to promote vice so that everyone is preoccupied thinking about how they can afford this brand or have this casual hookup to fill the void with some oxytocin and dopamine, instead of things like, hey, when's the last time I went out and did something fun with my neighbor? Things that actually matter, swept under the rug. In the face of mass media and mass consumerism, you will never escape the promotion of vice. You will never escape the mass marketing because their plan is contingent upon you being demoralized. Consumerism is a psyop. Pornography is a psyop.
Everything's a psyop. Everything I don't... John Doyle's book. Everything I don't like is a psyop. And other things I think about when I'm frustrated I can't masturbate.
Every time you watch porn, you move the needle towards defeat. I'm not even remotely joking about that. We need you to be as sharp and competent as possible, and that requires both mental and physical fitness. Imagine what we could do with 100,000 handsome, high IQ, high energy, physically fit young men.
What could you do with 100? John, what could you do with 100 fit, young, virile men? John's the worst kind of coomer. He's a coomer who never cooms. And that's not good.
We could win is what we could do. And I like winning. I'd like to be tired of winning, but it's up to us. We can ride the decline. We can accept defeat. Just ride this degenerate wave of wealth and prosperity until it comes crashing to a halt.
Tucker White 94, how much do you want to bet John Doyle's computer is filled with porn? Probably. Probably.
And there's nothing we can do about it, or we can better ourselves. We can discipline ourselves. We can push back. We have no choice. Because no coalition of people who lack discipline, who practice unhealthy lifestyles, who are nihilists, no coalition of people like that have ever been successful at anything, ever. And luckily for us, the type of people we're going up against, that's them.
There's nothing funny about
They have a tremendous head start, though, but we're still here.
Yes, clearly I'm nihilistic, and I don't care about anything, which is why I do this show. Towing24, can't wait to watch this replayed on court TV when John goes to trial after trying to overthrow the government. John's the kind of guy that I'm surprised he didn't end up in that group that tried to kidnap Governor Whitmer. Seems like his type of thing. Antipodian Squid with 50 bits. I swear every time I tune in this week, I come in thinking, what is this new weirdness I walked into? Welcome to the stream.
We're not going anywhere, but the window's closing. It's closing quickly. So you have to decide. You have to make the choice. Are you going to watch it close? Or are you going to jam your hand in there, man? It'll suck. You'll have to make sacrifices. It'll cost you money, friends, opportunities. Who even knows? But the more of us that do it, the
John, don't use your hand. You haven't coomed in years. Shove your massive, overfilled testicles in that door, okay? They're impenetrable. They're going to stop anything. They're so full of coom. This is disgusting. I'm sorry.
easier it'll be on all of us. We have to stick together. It's the only way, we can make America great again. Don't waste your time on me. You're already the voice inside my head. I miss you. Don't waste your time on me. You're already the voice inside my head. I miss you, I miss you. This is how we warm up. This is the outro, but before. You gotta warm up the voice because we're about to talk. But you're watching this after. Okay.
There's nothing funny about the tools of
Deafen you,
capitalism.
please. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, that one hurt. Alright, that's enough John Doyle for today. Jesus Christ, John. Get a hold of yourself. Everyone, please vote. Vote on the 3rd, because John's going to. So vote. And take other people to vote. People that might not normally vote. Take them to vote, please.